In today's video, we're going to test out the SE Dynamite with a bunch of different podcasting and dynamic microphones. Let's get into it. Welcome to the channel, folks. My name's Shane. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and also click the bell. So as I just mentioned, we're going to test out this SE Dynamite, which is an inline microphone preamp that gives you up to 28 dB of extra gain. Now, when it comes to podcasting microphones in particular, and a lot of dynamic microphones, you really need to crank up the preamp on your sound card to get the most out of them. What I also noticed just by using the preamps up when they're almost maxed out and still kind of usable, they still don't sound as good as they do with the preamp down. So that's why you want one of these. I did a full review of this and first impressions video. If you want to check that out, I'll leave a link up in the cards. In this video, what I'm going to do is compare how each of the microphones sound with and without the SE Dynamite with no additional post-processing. So what I'll do, I'll boost up if I need to change the volume in post. All I'll do is keep it the same all the way through so you can really hear what this is doing. So the first microphone is the one that you've been listening to, and this is the Rode PodMic. Now, this particular microphone has nowhere near this amount of gain without the SE Dynamite, and I'll show you that right now. And laughably, this is how it sounds without the SE Dynamite with exactly the same settings on the preamp. I can barely hear anything in my headphones, and I'm right up on the mic, and my instinct is to be far louder to try to get any signal out of it. Now, the SE Dynamite makes it much easier as well to sit back and get a clear sound without the need to be always up on the microphone. I mentioned this in the review. This is far more comfortable to just be sitting naturally and to have the microphone a little bit away from your face. The next microphone on the list is the Rode Procaster. This is one of my favorite microphones of all time, as long as you can drive it properly. If you've got this microphone and you're using it into a sound card, odds are you've got the gain cranked and it's not going to really give you the kind of sound that you'll want. It just sounds infinitely better with the SE Dynamite than I'm used to hearing it without it. I don't use these microphones unless I have my DBX286S plugged in. But now, I gotta tell you, I like the sound of it nice and flat like this. Even though I don't have any sort of gate or expander on my voice, I really like what I'm hearing. I think it sounds great. Let's hear it without it. And this is how it sounds now without the SE Dynamite in the signal chain. I can't hear anything in my headphones, so I'm going to turn up the preamp on the sound card this time. I'm almost all the way up, and I can hear a whole lot. Yeah, I can hear a whole lot of white noise. And yeah, it gets very unpleasant audio-wise as well. So having this in the signal chain keeps that nice, clear signal going, but it gives you more than enough gain. So let's just go back to this quickly. And back to the SE Dynamite. And just in my headphones, this sounds infinitely better and cleaner than it did before. And it's great to be able to monitor your own voice when you're doing any kind of voice work like this, or if you're doing a podcast, for example, and just being able to get a nice, strong signal back in your cans is always good. Cans means it's something else in Australia a lot of the time, but I mean these ones, the headphones. Up next, we have the Shure SM57, the legendary mic. This isn't a clone or anything like that. I know a lot of people like to use this and they think it sounds better than the Rode PodMic. I sort of beg to differ. I find these a little bit harsh sounding for voiceover sort of stuff, but if you're going to post EQ it, you'll definitely get away with it. They have a really nice proximity effect as well, but I don't have a pop filter, so you're probably going to get some plosives. But they sound pretty good. Now, if you're a softly spoken person, you might get some really good use out of a mic like this, but I find them just that little bit hot. But overall, that's how it sounds with the SE Dynamite in the signal chain. Let's try it without it. And this is how it sounds without the SE Dynamite. Again, I can't hear anything that's going on in my headphones, and I'm not deaf. It's just the way that it is. The gain is so low. Now, I've got to crank this up again most of the way up to get any type of signal. And now it's starting to sound a little bit more comparable, but I still have to be really close to the mic to get anything out of it without increasing the noise floor of the preamp by just maxing it out. So again, SE Dynamite works well with an SM57. Up next, we have one of the microphones that I think punches well above its weight. This is the Behringer Ultra Voice XM8500. I purchased a whole lot of Behringer mics a while back, and this one was miles ahead of all of them. The SM57 is good if you're a musician, but in terms of just for voice use, this sounds great, and it's absolutely taking advantage of the SE Dynamite right now. It sounds so much better, and I can sit back and crank up the preamp a little bit more and not be right on the microphone. So this opens up those possibilities of getting the microphone out of shot and still getting a really nice sound. Or you can turn the gain down and get up on the microphone and get a really nice warm sound. I think if you're on a budget, this would be my microphone of choice. I'll leave some links in the description below. And this is how the Behringer XM8500 sounds without the SE DM1. Now, one of the great things about this mic over most of the others is I can get the gain on the preamp up to about 2 o'clock, and that should be enough to get a pretty good signal. But if you like to sit back from the microphone, you're still going to have that problem of needing to crank up the preamp a lot, and eventually it's going to start to sound worse and worse, which is why this is a good thing. But if you like to sit closely to the microphone, you know what? I don't think you actually need it for the XM8500. And lastly, I thought I'd throw in the ultra budget microphone. I've done a full review of this, and I got to tell you, with the SE Dynamite, it actually sounds pretty great now. It gives me far more signal. They're a little bit on the bland sounding side, but the SL84C from Behringer is good if you're on an absolute budget or you just want to get started. The problem I have with this kind of microphone is without something like the SE Dynamite, you're not going to get anywhere near as nice of a sound unless you've got really good quality preamps to begin with. And I said that in my review of it. I purchased all the microphones that you've seen so far. None of these were free or gifts or anything to the channel. So this one only cost me 32 Australian dollars. I think there's something like roughly around 18 bucks on B&H. I'll leave some links down below as well. But yeah, look, this is sounding far better than I ever thought it would sound, to be honest. Hearing it again now, so long after I first reviewed it with the SE Dynamite, it kind of sounds pretty good. So I'm going to take the SE Dynamite out of the signal chain now, and we'll take a listen. And over to the Behringer SL84C without the SE Dynamite. Now, I can't hear anything in my headphones. I'm going to crank the preamp up to about 3 o'clock, which is as high as I like to put it on this preamp before things get really nasty. And it's usable, right? But if you're going to spend a little bit more money on a microphone, get the Behringer XM8500. This competes with a lot of the other professional podcasting microphones. So there you have it. That's the kind of results you can get by using the SE Dynamite. Now, as I mentioned in the video, you might not need this for certain microphones, but in terms of these Rode Procasters, the Rode PodMic, an SM7B or anything like that, this SE Dynamite or a Cloud Lifter or a DBX286S would be perfect. On my next video about audio, I'm going to be comparing this to my DBX286S. I'm going to see also how they work together, because I almost feel like the signal chain can only improve by adding this to a DBX286S. They're all tongue twister model numbers. I always get tongue-tied on them. But yeah, as I said, this will definitely improve your audio if you're doing any kind of podcast, just because I love what it's doing. I got my gain down at 9 o'clock with a Rode Procaster, which is unheard of. So I much prefer this. Let me know what you think of one of these, if you've already got one or if you're thinking about buying one. I'll leave some affiliate links down in the description. Thanks again so much for watching. Thanks for being subscribed. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.